Kia ora tātou, everybody. Talofa lava, malo, elele, bula vanaka, kia orana, the ethnicities of the players who will be picked today. And greetings to you all. To those here and those watching and listening, thanks for joining us. On behalf of New Zealand Rugby, it gives me great pleasure to announce the All Blacks squad for Rugby World Cup 2019 in Japan. The squad is Bowden Barrett, Blues and Taranaki. Geordie Barrett, Blue Hurricanes and Taranaki. Scott Barrett, Hurricanes and Taranaki. George Bridge, Crusaders and Canterbury. Sam Kane, Chiefs and Bay of Plenty. Dane Coles, Hurricanes and Wellington. Liam Coltman, Highlanders and Otago. Ryan Crotty, Crusaders and Canterbury. Jack Goodhue, Crusaders and Northland. Rico Ioane, Blues and Auckland. Luke Jacobson, Chiefs and Waikato. Nepal Lolala, Chiefs and Counties Manukau. Anton Leonard Brown, Chiefs and Waikato. Atu Moli, Chiefs and Tasman. Joe Moody, Crusaders and Canterbury. Richie Moonga, Crusaders and Canterbury. TJ Perenara, Hurricanes and Wellington. Kieran Reid, Crusaders and Counties Manukau and Captain. Sevu Rees, Crusaders and Waikato. Brodie Retallick, Chiefs and Hawke's Bay. Adi Savia, Hurricanes and Wellington. Aaron Smith, Highlanders and Manawatu. Ben Smith, Highlanders and Otago. Angus Ta'aval, Chiefs and Taranaki. Cody Taylor, Crusaders and Canterbury. Matt Todd, Crusaders and Canterbury. Patrick Tuipolotu, Papa Tuangafasi, Blues and Auckland. Brad Webber, Chiefs and Hawke's Bay. Samuel Whitelock, Crusaders and Canterbury. And Sonny Bill Williams, Blues and Counties Manukau. Congratulations to all those selected for Rugby World Cup 2019. Over to Steve Hansen.
Thanks, Brent. The selectors would like to join with Brent to congratulate the guys that have just been called out and named. It's always a great honour to be named in any All Black squad, but particularly a Rugby World Cup one. I would also like you to just take a moment and reflect the hard effort and the disappointment of the people who have missed out. It's always a really tough time in their career, and really, really tough when, in a lot of cases, in the guys that have missed out, it's not because they're not good enough, it's just because we've got so much talent. Over the last couple of months, we've spent a lot of time building our game, working on the individual skill sets we want, and as selectors, taking the time to try and get really clear on what it was we want to put together from a selection point of view for this team. Now we're finally in a position to be able to put all our time, effort, our thinking into what's going to be an awesome challenge. Doing something that's never been done before and trying to win 3 World Cups in a row. We know it's going to be hard, we know it's going to be tough, and we know that we're going to have to earn the right to do it. But in saying that, anything that's worth doing has to have those components in it. There'll be a massive amount of scrutiny, expectation, and because of that, pressure. The one thing we're looking forward to, though, is taking that pressure head on and enjoying everything that it brings with it. We've been fortunate enough to live in an environment with the All Blacks where that expectation's with us all the time. Not only are we expected to win test matches every time we play, but by big margins. And we believe that pressure will be something that will give us an advantage. I'll talk about that in a little bit in a minute. This World Cup looks like it's going to be the mostly fiercely contested tournament yet, with a number of teams turning up in Japan thinking they're going to win it. And that's going to create some expectations on them too, and with that expectation, pressure. It'll be interesting to see who can cope with it and who can't, because the tournament will demand that they do. And this is where I think we have a small advantage. As I said, we live there all the time. Some of these teams, it's going to be the first time that they're going to turn up and have to feel that pressure. And it can be overwhelming when you haven't had it before. So as I said, we look forward to this tournament with a lot of excitement. Obviously, there's no guarantees in sport, but when you've got talent, a work ethic, and a mental fortitude, you give yourself a chance. We in the All Blacks have always believed that we don't only represent the team and the individuals in it, we also represent all of New Zealand. And we'd like to thank our fans and the people of New Zealand for all their support in advance. And we can assure you that we'll be going to this tournament to do everything in our power to make you proud of us and being a New Zealander. Thank you.
Who's got the first question? We've got microphones down the front. Julie to Ross Cole, please. Julie, just behind you. Thank you. Right behind you, Julie. Thank you.
Steve, Owen Franks is one of the great All Blacks. Why isn't he there?
Well, you're right. He is one of the great All Blacks. He's certainly shown true character. His professionalism both on and off the field has been magnificent over the years. He's played over 100 test matches. But unfortunately, we as the three selectors, we believe the game requires us to have big, mobile number ones and number threes. And in this case, we just think the other guys that we've named are more so than he, and therefore we had to make a tough decision.
Did you make a phone call to him?
Yep.
And how did that go?
Well, obviously, he's very disappointed, but I won't go into details about what we said or anything, but very respectful of how he coped with it, and again, it's a mark of the man.
Did his long-term Achilles injury come into this at all? Or?
No.
Microphones, everyone.
Steve, Liam Squire's obviously a bigger mission. Did he make himself available?
We had a phone call, a really good phone call actually, and discussed things. And whilst Liam is playing really well for Tasman, really enjoying his rugby, at the conclusion of the conversation, it was agreed that he would make himself available if we required him as a replacement.
Hi, great squad, guys. Look, the midfield backs, can you go through, I guess, Ngani Laumape missing out and Trotty getting the nod there?
Again, it's one of those positions where 5 doesn't fit 4, and whoever we left out was going to be disappointed and probably deserved to be in the team. In the case of Ryan, he's got a lot of experience, been with the All Blacks, he's in the team leader group. He's a quality player, can play both second 5 and centre, and those little things probably edged him ahead of Nans.
Steve, can you give us an update on Brodie Retallick, and at what point of the tournament do you expect to have him available?
A good question. The update is his shoulder's still sore. We don't expect him to play in the round robin, but we're reasonably sure that, with no disrespect to anyone else in our pool, that we should make the quarterfinals. From there, we don't know. So at this point, we've rolled the dice to take him for that quarterfinal, and we'll see what happens from there. We think he's worthy of that risk. He's a quality player, and he'll add plenty to us off the park as well.
If he doesn't run right, can you replace him?
Yep. But once we replace him, that's it. He can't come back.
Yep, go Andrew.
Steve, just in relation to Liam Squire, can you tell us a wee bit about why that decision was reached? Was that your call, his call, and what were the reasons behind it?
I can't give you the reasons behind it because it was a private conversation, but it was a joint decision, yeah.
Was there part of you that felt like, because he had obviously ruled himself out of contention earlier, that others deserved that opportunity before?
No, not at all. It was a conversation that was had between him and I about where he was at and how he is feeling, and as I said, I can't go into any more detail about that, but you just got to respect the fact that he's been strong enough to do what he thinks right for the All Blacks and himself.
And can you give us a comment on Luke Jacobson's rise? One cap to his name, and he's off to the big dance.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter if you've had one or none or 100, I guess. If you're good enough, you should be available for selection, and hence why we've done that. He's a former under-20 captain, so he's got good leadership skills. Defensively, he's one of the best hitters in the game. He's a good ball carrier, and he's just a smart rugby player. So we think he's got a big future.
Where you go, Nige?
By having to carry 4 locks, and as you say, Jackson, Himmerpaul, Fire-for-Feeder guys who can play lock, you've taken Luke over the top of them. Can you talk to that a little bit for us, please?
Yeah, well, once we decided we were going to take 4, came down to Jackson and Via contesting that 4th lock position straight out with Patrick. We saw Patrick's performance against Australia, and we're really happy with how he performed. Then it came down to Via and Jackson then competing with Luke for the 6th spot, and we just felt that Luke brought a little bit more than the other 2 to that position.
When you looked at the timeframes that you had in terms of your schedule, at any point did you feel it might be possible to maybe go with 2 specialists in terms of your hooker and your halfback? Was that ever an option considered?
We considered it, but not for very long with the hookers. There's not many guys in squads that can play hooker, and we don't have one. So therefore that option went straight off the table. For a long time we thought about only taking 2 halfbacks, and then that option got moved a little bit when Damien got injured. However, we continued to talk about it a little bit, but in the end we were comfortable to go with 3 because we are comfortable with only the 2 first 5s.
One more, Nige. Where you go?
I'm on a roll.
You're on fire, son.
Mate, Richie Mo'unga, where is he at with his shoulder injury? Will we see him against Tonga?
His shoulder's pretty good. Will we see him against Tonga? We'll have to wait and see. If it was a World Cup final, the answer would probably be yes, but it's not. So, as I said, we'll wait and see.
Was that you, James? No.
Just in terms of the loose forward mix there, there's not as many big humans, but you've got some fast, mobile guys. Can you maybe talk us through, does that relate to the game plan or just strictly form?
I don't know if you've stood beside Luke, but he's a fairly big human. Kieran Reid's definitely a big human. And anyone that's tried to stop Artie would suggest he's bigger than he looks too. Sam Cane's pretty solid, so I think it's a perception that we've always had a player like a Jerry Collins, a Jerome Kino, even a Liam Squire you'd chuck into that mould who big grizzly bears. We probably don't have one of them as such. I think Luke will develop into that type of player. But we're very, very confident with the group we've got. We've got a lot of faith in how the senior loose forwards in that group are playing, and a lot of faith and confidence in Luke.
Hello, Ian.
Hello, James.
Just wondering, mate, if I could get your thoughts on, I guess, some of those decisions around the midfield and whether you're happy at this point, one game out from the World Cup, with I guess the guys' understanding of the way you're trying to play.
Yeah, we're very happy with that. I think we've seen good progress in that regard the last 3 or 4 tests. I think, if you look at the midfield, it's probably been the one that we've spent a lot of time on, if not most of the time. Just it's simply because we've got 5 really quality players that we're happy to pick, and also we've had the likes of Braden Edenor who's been with us, and he's put his hand up there and shown that he can play there. So it is a position that we've got a lot of options, and so we've taken a collective approach really to that the last 4 tests, and making sure that we build a real understanding amongst that wider group about what we want to achieve on the park. I think we've seen signs that it's going really good, and the understanding's there. And now we're going to a World Cup where we've had to narrow it down to the 4 we've got, and it's been a tough call, but now the pressure's on that 4 to make sure that we push that part of our game ahead. And with the way the game's going, it's a key part, particularly they make a lot of decisions in the game now.
Elliot?
Steve, with 2 first fives in the squad, do you consider you've got a third backup option should you need it on a game day scenario, and who might that be?
Yeah, we've considered we've probably got 3 of them. I guess you want me to tell you who they are, so I'll do that. Geordie Barrett, we think, can play there. TJ, we know, can play there. And Ryan Crotty spent a lot of time playing first 5 as a young player. I think he played in the under-20s or under-19s as it was back then, and under-21s. I think he may have played, started those tournaments as a 10. So we're pretty confident. And if we had to, I think Ben Smith could play there too. He's played everywhere else as a world-class player, so pretty sure he could play there too.
Hey guys, first congratulations on the squad, very excited here. You talk about individual skill sets, and there's a lot of players here that have got fullback skill sets. Is that in reaction to what the Northern Hemisphere are bringing and what South Africa are going to bring with their kit games?
Do you want to answer that, Fossey? Otherwise you're sitting here like the weekend at Bernie's.
I'm quite happy to sit here.
Yeah, no, there's flexibility in the back 3, and we've shown that in recent years. Israel played fullback and wings, so we think those positions are interchangeable because the skill sets are quite similar. So, it's about what we want to do. It's also in reaction to what we expect to get thrown at us. So a balance of the 2, and we're pretty excited about the 5 we've got there. They're not bad. And we've had a couple of guys who've been incumbents who haven't been, quite at the top of their game in recent weeks. And we've had a couple of young guys put their hand up. So we expect a response from the senior players, and that's going to create a headache for us, but it'll be a good headache to have.
Steve, you talked at the top about pressure and expectation and how the All Blacks are familiar with it and some other countries might not be. Which countries do you think might struggle a bit with the expectation and pressure at this World Cup?
Any team that hasn't had it before.
For you, which are those teams?
Well, I've given you the idea, Jimmy. You go away and work it out yourself.
It's so much better if you just rattle through a few names, though.
Well, like I said, every team that's going there that thinks they can win it.
We've got Mark Hinton in the second row.
Steve, given the inevitability of injuries, beyond this 31, do you have a group of players sort of on notice that they could be required if injury strikes?
Well, every Mitre 10 player will be on notice because that's where the players will come from, that pool. As such, a list, no, we don't. You'd have to think that anyone that's been involved in the squad this year, would be thinking that, hey, if there's an injury, I could be considered. But if we have to go deeper than that, then that's what we'll do. And, so we'll be monitoring what's going on back here, both from a selection point of view, but also from a fitness point of view through our trainers, through a medical point of view, through our wellbeing group. So, yeah.
Yep, in the middle here.
Steve, you said that all the players playing Mitre 10 will be eligible. Does that mean someone who's made themselves not eligible for a Mitre 10 squad won't be possible to be called up?
Well, it's very hard to judge their form, and you require them to be fit, so match fit, because they'll be coming in. Could come in at any stage, but more than likely that if we're have earned the right to be there at the end of it, then they're coming in at the top end of the game, and there just won't be room for people that aren't match fit.
Hi, Steve. I'm hearing a lot of questions about everyone who didn't make the team, and it strikes me that you have so many players to choose from. How much of an advantageous position is that as a coach to have so many people at your disposal in a way compared to other squads who aren't as sort of resourced as you are? And my second question is, how does it feel going into this with a target on your back? Everyone wants to beat the All Blacks.
Well, we'll answer the last question first because it's fresh in my mind. How does it feel? It's the same as it always feels. It's been happening for as long as I've been here. For 16 years, there's always been a target on the back of the All Blacks. And that's why I say, that might be a small advantage to us because we go to the World Cup. We've got these expectations every day we live there. The one thing that's been constant while I've been in the All Blacks, and from what I can understand, has been constant from the day the All Blacks started. There's been an expectation that they win rugby games. Now, I can't say that about every other international team. So I think, that target, you can run from it or you can walk towards it and say, well, there's a reason that target's there. And enjoy what comes with that pressure and enjoy every moment and get excited by it. And that's what we'll try and do. And that's my point about if you're not used to that, it can be a wee bit overwhelming. And that's why when you have young players come into our group, it's important to make sure that we nourish them and grow them. It's also why in some cases we've taken experience against versus non-experience because you need that at a tournament like the World Cup. Now that I've rattled on about that, what was your first question?
My first question was about how, the pool of players that you get to choose from compared to other teams who may not be as...
Well, they'll probably dispute that they too have a pool of players, and I think that would be fair. I think if you look at the Englands, the Irish, the Welsh, the South Africans, they've all developed a group of players now beyond just their 15. Beyond just their 23. And that's why it's going to be such a fiercely contested tournament. There's advantages of having a lot of talent, obviously, and that's quite obvious, so you get to pick really good players. There's a disadvantage too, if you're a poor selector, you might end up picking the wrong ones. So hopefully we're not poor selectors. But the next thing we have to do is we have to get to this tournament and make sure we pick the right players for the right matches that we're playing. And we're fortunate we've got some really good options.
Nigel, there you go.
Steve, how would you describe your own coaching form heading into the World Cup? Do you feel as though you've advanced yourself as a coach over the last 4 years?
I hope so. Otherwise I've wasted 3 of them. Probably not for me to answer that question. Go and ask the players. Is he coaching any good or is he useless?
Can I ask that of your assistant coach then?
Do I have an option?
What was the question? Look, I think we're in a challenging environment, and in the first place you start when the challenge is with each other. So, the last, there's not a week go by that we're not questioning what we're doing and how we're doing it. So, if the question is, has Steve grown as a coach? Well, he's grown a lot as a coach. And in my period, there's been a lot of change, but there's been a lot of change in all of us because we've had to. So we ask a lot of our players out of learning from experiences, whether they're good or bad. But the only way we can ask it of them is if we ask it of ourselves first. So, I think we're pretty good, without being perfect at critiquing how we're going and how we're coaching and chucking out some bad stuff and hopefully replacing it with some good stuff. So it's a constant, and going to a World Cup that we're going to keep doing that.
James.
Thanks, Joe. Grant, just how difficult as a selector was it to whittle this team down to 31 guys?
Difficult. I've been on record as saying for quite some time that getting it down to 31 is tough and 31's not enough, but it's a number we've been deemed to allowed to have by World Rugby. So it is what it is. And when we do have the talent pool we've got, our jobs, as Steve said, is to get that selection right. time will unfold and tell us that, of course. But there's unlucky guys. But every time an All Black team has ever been named in history, I mean, you guys are full of it all the time about who's unlucky, who's the unluckiest All Black. There'll be headlines on that tomorrow, no doubt. So here we go again. So it's normal. That's the world we live in. But we won't just use 31. I think everyone knows here there'll be injuries. There could even be one before we get on a plane to Tokyo. So the guys who have missed out, we feel for them. Incredibly unlucky. They wouldn't let us down if they were in the group, but they still might get their chance.
We've got a question in the middle here, and then we'll be close to wrapping up, I think.
Hi Steve, Squire from Tangata Pacifica. I see 10 out of the team are Islanders. The first game is going to be against Tonga. How important is it to play little islands like that, and how are you going to beat the Tongan fans?
We don't have to beat the Tongan fans, New Zealand fans have to do that. But it should be a great occasion because of the Tongan fans. I'm thinking if they take the same route they take with the league games that we're seeing. It is exciting having the Polynesian influence we've got in our squad. They bring something special to our game in New Zealand, along with our Maori heritage players. And how important is it going to be to support the Pacific game? Well, I think it's hugely important. We support it in a number of ways now. I think with IP through coaching, through developing a lot of players here in New Zealand that end up going and playing for the various sides. Occasionally we get one or two of their players too, who come over here to go to school. That seems to be happening in England, France, everywhere else as well. So you're obviously developing a lot of good players. But it's important because if we want rugby to grow, then we have to have a strong Pacific.
We'll take one or two more questions, or we'll wrap up. We've got Sam from What Now down the back. He's got a quick question. Julie, thank you. Stand up, Sam, if you want.
If Damien was all fit and ready to go, would he be an option as an outside back?
There you go, Sam, you right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Yeah, he would be an option. He'd be an option as an outside back, inside back.
Well done, Sam. Any last questions? We'll wrap up there. Thanks, everyone. Stick around. We'll have coaches doing one-on-ones shortly. Thank you.